Mark, we're going to be talking about digital workflow and digital technologies. I'd just like to know, how is this going to impact my case planning?
I think that's one of the biggest ways that digital can actually help us is from a treatment planning and a case perspective. Because what we can do is we can take any sort of preoperative material we have, intraoral scans, standard impressions, import them in digitally and put them into Simplant and different digital modalities. And from there we're able to import wax-ups, figure out where the teeth are going to go, and from there really dial in our case planning and case selection so that we can get the teeth in the proper place and thus put our implants in the proper place. So I think, to me, it's the easiest, most streamlined, and truthfully, because it's one digital file going into another digital file, I think it comes in so clean into the software that it really does improve, at least it improves my treatment planning abilities.
What is the one technology that I just can't live without?
So the thing you'd have to pull from my cold, dead hands would truthfully be Simplant. That is my absolute go-to tool as far as planning goes. And I use it every single solitary day, and the reason why I like it is just the ability to, as I said earlier, import any file into it. I can put multiple models in there, and then what I can get from it is get a lot of different products from there that really streamline my surgical and restorative work that I do.
How important is research? In this world of our changing the way that we do things, how critical is research to our choices and our decision making?
I think research is actually huge because if you look at technology, and that's what I spend most of my day and most of my time in is dental technology, the technology comes out a lot quicker than the research does. So a lot of times we get these technologies and modalities that come out and there isn't a lot of data on them yet. And for me, again, using these tools day in, day out, I like to know what I'm actually using and the best way to use it and what it's going to do with my patients and how it's going to impact them. And I think we need to be able to make sure that as we use these things, for example, as we use our surgical guides, we know exactly what we're getting from the surgical guide perspective versus an in-house one or a do-it-yourself one where we're really not sure exactly what we're getting. So I think the scientific data is probably one of the most important things for me.
I'm finding it really interesting as a consumer of dental technology. I'm looking at different products and different integrated workflows. And I see with Dentsply Sirona that they're one of the companies that has products that they own that has an integrated workflow. What differentiates Dentsply Sirona from other companies?
My favorite is a thing called immediate smiles, and so what that is basically what we do is we treatment plan a case in Simplant. Once we get our implant exactly where we want it in Simplant, what we do is we take that design, we put it over to Atlantis Abutments. Atlantis is able to design a pre-op custom abutment for us. Then they're able to give me a file of that custom abutment so that I can put it back in any CAD/CAM system and design a provisional or final restoration even before we've done the surgery. So on the day of surgery, I've got my guide, I've got my custom abutment from Atlantis, and then I've got my provisional waiting for me so that the surgery goes quick because I know from the data, like we talked about earlier, what's going to go on with my implant. And then secondarily, from a provisional perspective, it's a snap because all the pieces are integrated and made pre-op for me so that I don't have to worry about spending all my time doing those things, while the patient's sitting in the chair. It just all comes together right in the patient's mouth, and out the patient goes with a really nice and really extremely predictable result.
I see companies talking about fully integrated workflow. What's the reality of that? When they say that to me, are systems truly totally integrated, or are all the companies making an effort to bring things together, but there are gaps that you have to be aware of?
I think that's a very interesting question, just because I think the companies in themselves, everybody is trying to do a very integrated workflow within their network of different machinery, if you will. But what I think is really interesting is the companies also have to realize that the end consumer, all the dentists out there, a lot of them aren't going to have all of their exact same stuff that company offers, so they also have to allow for the flexibility to use stuff from all these different companies. And that's where I think, I love Dentsply Sirona's because, again, we have everything together in one package, but it also allows the flexibility that if I need to use a different scanner, I can use a different scanner. If I need to use a different design software, I can use a different design software and still integrate everything together. And I think that adds a complete another layer to, practitioners like us, just because we're able to use what we currently have and implement it into these different workflows and come in at them what is most comfortable for us in our workflow in our office and in our overhead.
I have Simplant. You said that's the one thing I need. Okay, so I want to adopt technology incrementally. I'm not going to just, buy everything that I can. So kind of give me a pathway of what's the first thing I'm going to get and what the order of the adoption that is going to be something that's manageable for me as a private practitioner that lives in an analog world.
Again, that is probably about one of the most loaded questions one could ask. But what I think the reality is every practice we need to take a look at what are our needs, what is our current workflow, the way we're doing things. And again, because we could spend probably about $300,000 just going and buying all different machines from people. The reality is we need to look at our practices from a overhead perspective and whatnot and see what we can afford and what is going to work well. To me, I think one of the easiest things, the cheapest, biggest benefit things from us is Simplant, because you can order guides, you can plan all your cases, you can do everything that way. Probably the next tool that I would get for me would probably be either a lab scanner. Again, being a prosthetist, it would probably be a laboratory scanner, just because then I can design all my provisionals, I can design my finals, I can design all my wax-ups. From a private practitioner that's, say, a general dentist, I think probably, honestly, one of the best things that you can buy from a general dentistry perspective is CERAC, because you've got a wonderful return on investment, just because I think it's fantastic for bread and butter dentistry, our standard posterior crowns, anterior crowns, quadrant dentistry, and I think that's probably what I would go with. But every practice, whether you're a surgical practitioner, general dentist, or prosthetist, every practice needs to critically look at what we're doing and look at what the return on investment of the technology will be and start with that, and then we move to the other, if you will, toys once we really look at the business model of our practice and make sure it can fit into that business model.
Okay, so we can calculate some quantitative benefits and also there's some qualitative benefits, but how about when it comes down to outcomes? How's it impacting outcomes?
For me, the biggest thing I see with outcomes is relative to the surgical placement of implants. I work at an institution, and what we've noticed was from a guided perspective, and if you look at the literature, you see this as well played out, is that guided surgery will get your implant in a very nice spot where you need it to be able to restore it. And I think that's from a outcomes perspective where I see the best results, is because our implants are being placed more according to our plan of the final restoration, and we're getting better not only biologic outcomes but aesthetic outcomes as well due to better planning and better execution of our implant cases.